can we now go ahead to our next speaker? So with that, thank you so much, Dr. Radha. Let's give her a warm round of applause. She's joined us, and of course, there's always some technical issue we don't have much control of. Now we are having Mr. Ashok Kumar Sharma, Deputy Managing Director, Chief Credit Officer, and Chief Sustainability Officer at State Bank of India. Mr. Sharma joined SBI as a probationary officer back in 1991. He's worked in various roles, including the Vice President at SBI Singapore, Deputy General Manager at Overseas Branch, New Delhi, and General Manager at Project Finance and Leasing, Corporate Center, Mumbai. He was also the member of the task force that set up the National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development. A man of his stature, of course, we'd like to welcome him with a thunderous round of applause and thank him for his valuable time. And over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, friends. We'll use mix of English and Hindi. I hope this is right for this audience. Okay. It's trying to understand the concept of inclusivity and sustainability together. In Indian culture, what are the thoughts? So is it that these concepts we have learned only from the Western mindset, or we have something in the Indian culture as well? Ayam nija paro veti ganana laguchet sam udar charitanam tu vasudev kutumbakam. यह मेरा है, यह उसका है, ऐसी सोच संकुचित चित्त वाले व्यक्तियों की होती है. इसके विपरीत उदार चरित लोगों के लिए तो यह संपूर्ण घर ही एक परिवार जैसा है. Look at the sustainability part of it. संरक्षेत दूषितो न स्याल्लोकः मानव जीवनम न कोपि कश्चित् नाशम कुर्यादर्थस्य सिद्धे. संसार प्रदूषित न हो, मानव जीवन सुरक्षित रहे, धन की सिद्धि के लिए कोई भी प्रकृति का नुकसान ना करें. If you go to the UN, you have SDG 1 to SDG 17, the entire list. Let us come back to the present. We, the India of the past, the golden era, which we call, around 1700 AD, our share in global GDP was around 29%. Then 1000 AD, we came down to around 25%, 24%. 2023, it's around 3.6%, currently 4 trillion. By 2047, we want to be 30 trillion. Now, this movement from we being roughly 29%, 25% of the global economy to be trying to be 30 trillion in 2047. How do we achieve this? What kind of inclusivity and sustainability we need to adopt? And how do we Indianize totally these concepts? Now, if you look at how do we look at inclusivity, so is it roti, kapda or makan? Providing these things to everyone? Or is it creating things like digital public infrastructure, wherein everyone gets the ability to include themselves in the mainstream of the society? To my mind, the government schemes would always help, but to a limited extent, unless we really develop more of DPIs, then inclusivity would be difficult. Sustainability is, या मैं हिंदी में कहूँ तो आपके जेब में रूमाल होता है, ये सस्टेनेबिलिटी है Did we learn this from anyone? आप कपड़े का बैग यूज़ करते हैं, बार बार यूज़ करते हैं, या इवन पॉलीथीन घर में आती है तो उसको रीयूज़ करते हैं. इज इट नॉट अ सस्टेनेबिलिटी? Indian ethos, Indian philosophy, Indian culture, it always had that mindset of sustainability. In many of the homes, I think you will echo my sentiment. घर में यदि किसी कमरे की बिजली आप जली छोड़कर दूसरे कमरे में जाते हैं तो कोई ना कोई घर में आवाज़ देगा, फ्री की आती है क्या? We all, as a part of our upbringing, are attuned to sustainability. Now, if whatever we do, suppose we bring sustainability to an extent which really becomes, results in cost saving, results in higher productivity. On the other hand, the inclusivity, wherein all our people, they develop the ability to maximize their potential, utilize their potential, then the journey of Viksit Bharat is not far off. In other words, I'll put it that way, that I think currently the per capita GDP is around 3,000 roughly, and when we want to grow, when we want to become the developed nation, roughly around 18,000 is the current estimate. So journey of roughly 3,000 to 18,000 using the inclusivity. In sustainability, this kind of measurement is a little difficult. Just to maybe a little more technical, the scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. From the point of view of the organizations, the carbon emissions, the equivalent carbon dioxide that we generate in our own consumption, that is scope 1. The emissions that happen because of, suppose I am traveling somewhere, the air travel, other travels, so that emission is scope 2. From the banking point of view, the loans that we give, the emissions coming out over there, that is scope 3. How do we minimize the emissions over there? As we know, as a country, the net zero target we have taken is 2070. Now, whether these targets we are talking about, whether in terms of the inclusivity or the sustainability, are they achievable? How do we make them achievable? We were looking at our own numbers. If I just quote, 2023 we did a measurement of scope 1 and scope 2. That's roughly 96,000 tons equivalent of carbon dioxide. We also measured how, from where these emissions are emanating. We realized we consume roughly 800 megawatt of power, bulk of them coming from there. We started talking to the discoms, can you give us green power? Now, most of the discoms are just eagerly awaiting कि आप list लेके आइए, आपके किस branch में green power देना है. We are on the job, and maybe next 1 year we should be able to finish this task. Other areas, what we are doing, so we have ACs, fans, other things. We are working out with our technical team to design these things in a way which are beyond the 5-star. So there is a category wherein the market has something, okay, if it is a 5-star AC, these kind of emission norms would be there. But we have realized that there is a possibility of having a better than the 5-star. We are working on those things. Now, based upon our own understanding of how we can contain these emissions, we are very confident that scope 1, scope 2, both, which relates to the functioning of the organizations, they are achievable not in a very long time. Scope 3, we fund large number of corporates, and the discussions with them, I'll give some examples. See, earlier you would not have noticed that the companies are setting up the renewable energy sources themselves. Now, large number of companies are setting up the renewable energy sources themselves. The rooftops, etc., they are already there. But how do you attack the bulk part of it? So, large companies, all the large companies are happy in setting their own renewable energy sources. Another question that keeps coming up in this area, do we have the money to become green? A lot of large numbers are thrown around. Some says 10 trillion, some say some different number. I just give you one insight. Right now we are roughly around 214 or 215 gigawatt in terms of the non-fossil power. Roughly 1 gigawatt cost around 5 crores. So 200 into 5, 10 lakh crore. If you do a debt equity 75-25, so 7.5 lakh crore of debt has been given to these entities. That is why we are at 200 plus gigawatt. Otherwise, we would not have been there. So money flow, we have not seen there is a challenge. If your policies in the country are right, the flow of money has been there. Second data I will give, how much money flow is occurring in the country on a year basis. Last year, FY 23-24, the total flow of money to the commercial sector was around 35.10 lakh crore. This is a flow in year, single year. So it is not only for the renewal, for everything. And how it has moved over the years, if you go back 10 years, FY 13-14, the data is around 13-14 lakh crore. So from 13-14 lakh crore, it has moved to 35 lakh crore. This is a flow. How does this flow compares with the total outstanding debt in the country, if you try to compare that part? So a couple of data points here. One is that the All India Scheduled Commercial Bank outstanding, which is roughly 175 lakh crore now. If you add the corporate bond market, then roughly another 50 lakh crore. So roughly 225 lakh crore. NBFC, again, NBFC is roughly 50 lakh crore, but there is an overlapping. NBFC also takes the money from the bank. So even if you add 25 lakh crore from that, we are 250 lakh crore. You add the CP market, this CD market, another 10 lakh crore, so 260 lakh crore, roughly the size of the total debt market in the country. As against 260 lakh crore of the stock, the flow of money is 35 lakh crore. And this 35 lakh crore flow of money is there when we say formalization of economy is only 56%. So with the 56% formalization, you have a 35 lakh crore flow. And second point, whether any country has become rich from Padosi ka money. So the answer lies here only. We have to learn to generate more money. And one thought which comes to my mind, how do we formalize the economy? The more formalization, the better. Now, if you come to the formalization part, the inclusivity becomes extremely important. Without inclusivity, the formalization would not happen. I was looking at one number in terms of the formalization part. The deposit held by the women as an individual. I was surprised to see that regional rural banks share the deposit share of regional rural banks, the women, roughly 41%, as compared to banks, urban banks, it's roughly for private sector banks around 40%, for public sector banks around 37-38%. That means sometimes we have this notion that the women in the urban centers, they are more wealthy, more smart, or whatever word we use. But the data is speaking differently. So that means the women do not need to reside in an urban setup to become inclusive, to be part of the Viksit Bharat theme. So on the inclusion side, what should we do? I was hearing the conversation, the last panel, these government schemes, things like that. We work a lot on the ground. So what we have seen that, okay, support is certainly needed, whether we talk of from the women's perspective, we talk of the downtrodden, schemes are important. But we need to create a level playing field where they come on their own without the support. That is actually the key. And we have seen, see, in our own organizations, roughly I think 27% workforce is women. And we also run special programs for the women leaders so as to give them, share the stories, how you handle that particular issues, how you came up, all that kind of thing. Is it enough? The one thing I liked the previous panel that we stop differentiating between the gender. Now we all know wherever we work, when you try to see the colleagues, those colleagues who are good at certain areas, those colleagues not so good at certain areas, is there any differentiation on gender? It's not there. Whether you see schools, you see colleges, the gender differentiation doesn't exist in terms of capability. So when they become part of the workforce, why this kind of sense is coming? But my sense is that in terms of the workforce inclusion, in terms of entrepreneurship, we also support a lot of startup activities. What we have been seeing that now that gender differentiation goes down really drastically. Whether when you're thinking of a doctor, only male is coming, I think that is changing. In all our families, a lot of daughters, sisters, they are there. I would say only one thing, that inclusivity and sustainability, how do we adopt in our own lives? If we can take care of this inclusivity sustainability in our own lives, then automatically the organizations we work in, the society we work in, the communities we work in, they all will become part of this. Now, as an organization, some other things that we also take care, for example, as a part of CSR, whether we pay more attention to these sections which are needs higher support, we do. So by and large, I think these thoughts which echo our Indian ethos, they are there in our value system, they are there in our culture, and I am very confident, very sure that these thoughts are going to get support from all of us. Further, they'll see greater heights, and I don't see any challenges regarding reaching the target of Viksit Bharat by 2047 or even earlier. Nothing more from my side. I think I have to close it here now. Anything else you want to ask me? Thank you, please.